always been passed down just talking to each other and passing it down that way. So traditions and language, you know, where you come from, what you do, it's just something that passes down that way. My culture die.
Yeah.
So when I see on the internet now and on social media now about the racist leaflets and the, you know, the GRT community and the policing bill, I'm like, I know it's gonna pass, and I know that even if they amended that bill, what the thing about us isn't coming off of it, because that's always been the plan, to just wipe us out. You just don't like what you don't understand, and I've just seen the end of it now, and it's got so cataclysmic and terrible. I just can't. I've just got to a point now where I'd rather go down fighting than leave it to some MP that I couldn't trust as far as I could throw them to try and pass a motion.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been very vocal about it this last month online, because all I'm seeing is nothing. All these different organisations that are meant to stand up for my community, and you know, and very, very few get much back, and also being offered crumbs and accepting them as well. There's an MP that got made, I'm not going to say who it was, but they got made a new community and then went to abstain on the policing bill. So fuck her. And that's why, you know, so it's literally like, you're on our side, but, you know, just for the column inches and the bit of praise. But when it comes down to it, you'll sign us off in a second. So this is what I just don't trust anybody with it now.
Can I just don't, sorry, I know Ben, this is, you know, your interview show, but there's just something Mikey said there that is just, I think, incredibly powerful. And I think it stands not just, you know, with your community, but with all working class communities and all communities, is, and you said you just don't like what you don't understand. And that is it in a nutshell. It's, you know, they don't want to understand any community other than their own, and they don't want to like any community other than their own. But I just had to say that, because I thought it just really hit me that you just don't like what you don't understand. It's a really profound, really just, it struck me there. Sorry,
Tina, I was just going to ask you as well, actually, because, you know, Mikey mentioned you know, some of the Labour MPs, and we've seen, I mean, it's not just an issue around leaflets. I mean, obviously that's kind of flared up again recently, but there's also been speeches from the Labour, you know, benches in opposition. Probably, I mean, if you go back, there will be when we were in government as well. But there's been a kind of steady stream of Labour MPs that have kind of, I think, would be putting it kindly to say that they spread myths around about the GRT community. I mean, you saw some of that. Obviously, you were about to, you know, potentially be a Labour MP. So what do you think about that?
I think I think it's funny, actually, not the subject, but the fact that I may have been a potential councillors that are the worst. The Labour councillors are the people who run many of the councils, who actually actively, work against, Mikey and Mikey's community in removing, the sites that people need, the amenities that people need. And what that does is it forces people to then, use mechanisms that then become against, the wider community that communities are in. And of course, then it becomes, some of it can be a funding issue, yes. And they cynically use, the issue of funding. Oh, we can't, provide services, so we must remove other ones. But also, it's about, for me, there's the short-termism of politics. So it's easy, as Mikey says, for people to put on a leaflet that they're going to remove a GRT community because that will remove the issues. But what they're not doing is looking at the fundamental issues that the community needs. And if they were able to, instead of looking the short term, but think of the long term, and what they should be doing as Labour councillors is providing the human rights of all communities that are needed to exist, and fight for the funding that you need to make sure that all communities have access to, the things that they need, and explain. I mean, regardless of whatever the issue is, I find that councillors tend to look for the easy answer, and so do MPs as well. It's what's the quick fix, rather than spending the time saying to communities. I had a debate actually with a few people on Twitter over the last few weeks in regards to the bill that is coming in, and people had said to me, I said it's a human rights issue, and some people were like, "What do you mean it's a human rights issue? What about our human rights as a community to have, a tidy community or X, Y, and Z?" And I've said, well, what about, maybe your community making sure that the services are there for the communities to be able to access? And, have you looked at the fact that it's not the communities themselves, but the lack of access? And I think, this is something that, I think, one of my big issues with Labour, one of the many issues in recent times is the fact that they do look for that quick answer. And it's the focus on electoralism rather than focusing on communities. And I think, that's what we need to be looking at is, if you're representing your community, you're not just representing one element of your community as a councillor, you're representing everybody within that ward, everybody that resides in that ward you're representing. And it doesn't matter whether they're the wealthiest or whether they're the poorest, you should make sure that everybody's needs are met, or at least do your best to make sure their needs are met. And don't pit one community against another looking for votes. Do the right thing. That's what we do as socialists. That's what we should do as, I was going to say as Labour people, but not all people in Labour are socialists, but we certainly should be looking to make sure.
Socialists.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Socialists. Only on the card.
Yeah.
Like there's too many bastards in it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like the whole leaflet gate thing. What, 2 days later, one of Hilary Benn's councillors is on Facebook writing anti-gypsy stuff on their Facebook thing. It frustrates me so much because we're so like.
And nothing happened either. Nothing happened to them.
Absolutely nothing. And this is what annoys me is that you keep keep being demonized all the time. It's like, oh, you're moving on to our fields and just leaving all your trash. Like, where did they come from? When I was growing up, there was hundreds of gypsy camps that were passed for permission that we bought, moved on to, built up to look absolutely lovely, moved up. God, most of our lot won't even take the plastic off the furniture, but you call us pigs, like, basically to death. But yet we built up all these lovely places, but then suddenly the demonization starts. A whole community gets together along with councillors, and all of them gather together, and suddenly a piece of ground that someone bought with planning permission on it is suddenly unplanned planning permission. We're chucked off, and then basically it's got worse and worse and worse over the years that we're all just sitting ducks going from place to place to place because there's literally every single camp, it's packed. And then but then the other answer is, well, council housing. Well, try and get a council house. Can't get it. So the only option they got is to literally move around from place to place to place. you can request your bins, you can request toiletries, you can request, you know, a place to actually put your rubbish. But when there's like a few families and there's like 30 of you all together and you're only there for a few days, you do make a good amount of rubbish there. And if the council ain't giving you nothing apart from threats to go away to who knows where, to the next place and the next place and the next place, there's going to be stuff there. So that's what really frustrates me, is this constant demonisation. So, and the thing with Labour, like, these are the people that I joined in 1915. Look here, like I'm a witch. I joined in 2015. You know, and all this hope and all this, you know, and it was, you know, and you really thought you'd make a change. And I remember the arseholes from before, and I just thought, well, we'll make sure that, you know, that they're held accountable. Then all of a sudden, all they did was just, you know, they just ate their own party to make sure they didn't win. But wiping us off was the Tory manifesto. That was their, you know, manifesto promise, to pretty much wipe out the gypsy community or the GRT community, to get rid of it. But, you know, Remain, people's vote, fuck you. You know what you were doing. So now that's where we are now. And so I have, when Toby Perkins came out as a racist, and suddenly John McDonnell was like, oh, it's all over now, it's fine now, because he made some lame ass apology. No, because I don't accept. I want you fired, because if I work in a bar, or I work in a school, or I work in a job, and there's a fucking racist in it that's been racist and has actually gone around campaigning and spreading a racist word and changing people's opinions with that racist opinion, just like Charlotte Nichols, smirky, walking around, like, an apology is not enough. You deserve to be fired, because you not only walked around with leaflets with that kind of stuff on it, but you also went from door to door selling that shit sandwich of racism. So you deserve to be fired for it. And it's not enough for me. An apology is not enough. You can sack somebody for a tweet. You can sack somebody, oh God, you can sack the leader for what? Standing up for himself. But depends on where your leaning is. If you're more right wing of Labour, an apology is enough. A shitty investigation's enough. A shitty, let's just pretend it never happened, is enough. No. So that's why Muggins here, old bitter and twisted old gypsy man, decided to start shouting about it on Twitter. And most people that are meant to represent me, like lovely and whatever else, but then I find myself pushed out so much, because I'm literally the guy that would come into a chat what has a Solidarity for Travellers event with John McDonnell on it, and I'd literally be like, no, John, you shouldn't be on this chat, because you accepted an apology from a racist, and I'm not fucking having it. You shouldn't be on here. Solidarity, my fucking ass. I argued with him that night, and he ended up fucking like blocking me. He's unblocking him now. But it's, you know, it's not good.
Truth hurts.
A racist is a racist is a racist, and I'm not going to take any other word for it. But there's that kind of way that all this, through the 40 years of my life, but all before that, the way that we've always been treated. And people keep thinking that we're moving around just dossing and stealing your children. God, you know, like when I was a kid, we used to go to schools and get separated from everybody else. You know, like the lived experience of that, the racism in the schools. It's, you know, it's abysmal, it's disgusting, but it's still very, it's so present today. My brothers send their kids to school today, and he just says, don't tell them what you are. Don't ever even give it off. And it's very difficult. Like, we can tell each other from a mile away, but you know, but you got to go in and kind of pretend, because you get treated differently straight away. But I never learned to read and write. I only went to primary school, and I couldn't read or write. I started learning to read and write after I was 15-year-old. And that's why I write like a psychopath on Twitter. And also why I've written 2 books where I have big gaps and stuff, because I try and write how I talk. But,
Mikey, I was going to say, because I think this is an important point about you know, both Labour MPs, but also, as Tina says, kind of wider within the Labour Party and probably across the left actually as well, you know, that it's not recognised as racism. So when people talk about you know, rubbish being left, or they talk about you know, a kind of macho culture and all of those kind of things, it's what the way that it's kind of sold in a way is that this isn't about racism. This is you know, this is a practical issues. We have to deal with it, and you know, quite often that slips into language of dealing with them, you know. So, but that is one of the issues, isn't it? Is that it's not actually recognised as racism. Do you think? I mean, what's your reaction when you hear that?
To me, it is because, like, you know, when you've grown up with it, and you're even when you're being called pikeys and, you know, and chavs and whatever else, it's it is. I mean, it is what it is. It is racism. But I get that people have like you can either accept the bullshit line that the Daily Mail gives you, or you can learn a bit. And the problem with that is that the people that should be teaching you a bit, that are meant to be on our side, are handing out leaflets saying no, fuck them instead. So
I think as well, for me, you know, I think like it's a huge aspect of dehumanizing people and, you know, othering and making communities feel that some people are worth more than others. And I think, you know, it's not it's endemic across society, whether it's, you know, the GRT community, whether it's people who are disabled, whether it's people who are mentally ill. It's all about making you feel unworthy. You're not worthy of this. You're not a community. Why would it even be racism? Because you're not even worth being classed as a race. That's basically what it's saying, you know.
Another
And
minority to blame, while they're all, you know, just like eating up everything else, and they're just pointing away saying, no, it's them, it's them.
Yeah, it's a massive divide and rule.
Money.
Yeah, massive divide and rule tactic, which is, you know, never mind the fact that it's the responsibility of the council to provide the facilities that, you know, people need to make sure that they can live as bloody human beings. What we're going to do is we're going to cut those services, and then we're going to blame the communities, and then we're going to make sure that, you know, when your community's untidy, instead of it looking like it's the council not doing their job, we're just going to blame those other people. That's basically what it is. And Labour are just as bad as the Tories, as the Lib Dems, and because it's a class issue. It's the fact that, you know, so many people who claim to represent people actually look down their nose at people and do it for a position or the desire to feel powerful, to have their own empire. And what they'll do is they'll use the easy tactics, which is the divide and rule, which is, you know, blame the other individuals rather than actually look for a solution. Because if you're a good politician, never mind politician, if you're a good representative of people, what you actually want to do is offer solutions. And offering solutions isn't easy. You don't look for the easy option. And anybody that's in a position of power should actually be thinking, right, how can we make this better? And that's what I expected of Labour. I maybe have been a bit naive, you know, in expecting that I felt that the people that were in the Labour Party were going to be the people who looked for, you know, didn't look for the easy way out, that looked for the humanitarian option, that looked for a way that was making things better. And believe me, I was madly deluded, but, you know, proud to say so.
But you know, it all sounded so great though at that time. You know, I think that, I mean, the truth is, as soon as 2017 happened, everyone gathered together to make sure that it never happened again. And so, you know, now we're just in, you know, it's a very, very bad place we are now, because literally we're being told things that aren't, and we have to just eat it. The only power we got is shit posting on Twitter, because, you know, God forbid some media person or anybody question the right thing. You know, so much corruption, so much bullshit, not just with the Tory party, but also with, you know, the randomly sacking and getting rid of left-wingers and whatever else. This is the thing as well, like the stay in Labour thing. I remember I was like, okay, I'll hang on for the NEC vote. I'm like, what a waste of time. You're just going to end up rigging votes anyway. And just think, well, what's the point? Member-led party? No. You're like the handful of people within it will just sack people and turn things over and smash things up. It's the problem. You've got a right wing inside the party, which it shouldn't have, which is why it's not a socialist party to me. But if you've got, and also your socialist campaign group are shite. But on top of that, you've got, you've got a right wing of the party, and for as long as they're not in control of it, they'll smash it all down. And that's what they'll keep doing. Every time they think they're not in control of it, they'll just keep smashing it all down. Sadly, the people that are meant to be on the left of the party don't have the bollocks that the ones on the right do. So they'll just have a little subtweet now and again, while the other option, you've got the right wing of it, that all I saw since 2015 was them constantly being given a platform by the right-wing press. And yes, I know that no left-wing person's going to be able to get a platform on the right-wing press to slate off the right. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? The right-wing press was helping the right of Labour destroy itself. And that, and sadly, a lot of left-wing media seems to simp for the right when it gets them a good slot on mainstream TV. Also, on top of that, it's meant to be news, not bloody University Challenge. So stop snobbily talking down to people all the time.
But there is a reckoning coming, though. There's a reckoning coming, I think, in the sense of, some people who, consider themselves, I would say, very much away from even the working class community, but from your community, Mikey, is the sense that there are people that feel that they're above and can't feel, are probably a lot closer to failure than they realize in the next coming months with what, with post-pandemic era, what's going to happen, economically, will jobs be gone, all the uncertainty around furlough, the uncertainty around rent, all these things are huge issues. And if you're living on the never, never, you are absolutely up shit creek in the next few months. And, I think what's going to happen there, to me, it is, don't get me wrong, incredibly scary. And I have my, as Ben knows, incredibly negative days where I'm like, oh my God, just burn it all, the world's going to end. But there's a huge opportunity here for the working class, for, all of us to be able to say, right, enough's enough, fucking waking up, open your eyes, smell the coffee, let's link together and realize that if we all come together and become a force, we actually have the power. And, it goes back to, I bring this back because although the Corbyn moment was incredibly high, low, everything else, and we didn't achieve what we wanted, there were those moments within it. And I always come back to the moment of him at Glastonbury, and he's, reciting the, what I'm going to talk, like the Mask of Anarchy. And he's like, shake your, shake off your shackles, basically, and realize that, that you are, the people, that you can actually do this. And I don't think those moments of reckoning come whenever you're in something positive, when everybody's sitting fine, earning 20 quid an hour, and, everything's hunky-dory, and we're all able to go out, every night of the week and eat out and, everything else, eat out to help out. But, those things only come whenever you're in the shit. And when you're in the shit, you're like, right, who is in here with me, and what the hell are we going to do to get out of it? It's up to us. It's up to us to realize that we do have this opportunity. So yes, and kind of leading it into the whole bill of, stopping people being able to protest and stopping people being able to organize. It's a balance, because that's exactly why they're trying to do this, because they know they're the people that be able to foresee, right, we've pushed these people into this position. What are they going to do whenever it comes out? Well, they're all going to want to organize. Of course, they're all going to want to protest, and the issue for me is that, yes, we can all sit here and go, let's have a wee, we're on Zoom, but, let's have a wee Zoom meeting and we'll all protest the bill. No, fuck that. We actually go out on the streets and we just say, no, we're not, I don't give a shit if you arrest me. What are you going to do? We have to realize and get some of the balls that people have had over previous generations and say, no, we're not going to sit back. If we all come out together, they can't arrest all of us. They can't, put us all in jail, until they've built 9,000 more prisons, for private, profit, which will come. If we don't organize, if we don't galvanize now, we will walk down that path to not being able to do it. So we are, you know, I do feel hopeful that I think there's enough people that do feel, no, we're not going to take this. But it's just, you know, who's going to be the person to throw that rock, and, you know, who's going to be the person to start that. And, you know, I think, you know, that there is, I think there, you know, I often joke about the fact that, you know, I come from a community that may be more willing to push back against authority. And, you know, I always can say, you know, do the English have it in them? And I think, you know what, we're going to find out whether they do or not, you know, because it's our only way out, you know.
Yeah, I do, like, I think for me, I don't have any faith in, like, you know, I cancelled my Labour thing, and I don't have any faith in them as a party. And I think there's too many bastards in it that'll always smash it down. But I do think that also, when I think over the last 5 years, the establishment, that meaning the Tories and the Labour Party, kicking the entire younger generation and every minority in the face, is going to come back and bite you. And so I just think that the inevitable is going to be that everything's going to blow up in their faces. Because look, the most powerful people that run the show at the moment, they're all in their 70s, and they're all billionaires, and they're also tight as fuck. So, you know, like, and not only that, most young people all live in the cities, and when they're all in the cities and, you know, just refusing to, you know, to give in, and you're too tight to fund the police enough to have enough of you, something's gonna break. So I just think kicking the whole younger generation in the face is gonna be the stupidest thing they've ever done. But I don't think a vote's gonna do it. I think it's literally just gonna be people just going, no,
Enough's enough.
I ain't got nothing. Why am I even what's the point of sitting at home and listening to you telling me that I've got to mourn Prince Philip for 6 months? You know, like, no, Dracula, no. So I think that's it. People are just getting angrier, and, you know,
Mikey, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things about your politics and where it comes from and how that fits in with, you know, with your kind of family background and stuff like that. Because I don't know if people have asked you that before. I suppose it probably wouldn't have been like Michael Burke's interest, for instance. But where did that come from? Where did that kind of like fight that we're kind of witnessing now, where does that come from?
So it just from being, so I consider that I was one of the last, we were like the last wave of us that weren't so in trouble as we are now, because we still had family members that had really lovely camps, and you could still move around like every 3 weeks, and you could still live the amazing social life of it. But also, my politics comes from my upbringing and the way we were treated. Being chucked out of pubs. I still remember the brass signs saying, you know, no travellers, no dogs, you know, and I still, like, being walked out of restaurants, being bullied in schools, being like, I've said this before, but like, when all of us used to get put, once the parents of the school we were in found out we were travelling people, we got took away from them all, and we had to go and get taught by this one person who ended up just asking us loads about our language and then published a book of poetry on it. So good for her, but fuck us, we all walked away with nothing. But we used to just sit and draw and just, you know, and just have banter with her, but we were kept away from everyone else. So my politics really comes from growing up within that, witnessing it firsthand, how people look at you differently and treat you differently. Like, a lot of us are white passing. I've lived at home, I've lived away from home now for like 24 years. And most of my formative growing up, you know, I left home when I was like, you know, nearly 16-year-old. So most of my growing up's been on the other side. And when I go home, it's only in those moments when I realise how much I've changed. So, you know, but my politics really comes from being on this side and seeing how it still happens, seeing this, you know, the way that people can just be openly racist for fun and it's totally unquestioned, how we can constantly throw minorities under a bus, or and like it's just that's where it really comes from. I just think the struggle of just trying to survive on this side. I don't know, I just needed to know the right people and I didn't, and so that's the experience that I've had, and that's how come I've got to a point now where I would consider myself a socialist. I'd imagine a lot of my lot would consider themselves socialists, because all we want is equality and fairness, but we just keep getting treated like dogs all the time with it. But the reason being is because all you're seeing is bloody leaflets by shithouses, so and Daily Mail things and whatever else. You all love Tyson Fury, but you know, he's one of us and all, I'm afraid. With funny politics, I'm not, because you don't like me.
Isn't it interesting though that really what it comes down to within whatever community you're from, wherever you are, that all that it comes down to is just wanting to survive and wanting to exist, and nobody wants to, other than, you know, nobody really wants nobody else except for the racist, nobody else to exist. We all just want to live a life that, you know, we can be happy, we can have a home, we can exist, we can be around our people, not harm anybody else. And, you know, yet at the same time, it seems like it's such a struggle to find that. Why?
Just a bit of fairness, you know, like it seems that most of the biggest jobs of the people, like, you know, Eton's there for a reason. It just breeds the people. It's literally just like the alien queen.
It's the bullshit factory.
It's now eggs of our next rulers. And that seems to be all Eton's for, is just like, oh, the next bully boy, the next bully boy, the next bully boy. And it's literally just laying these eggs of the people that rule us. But
it's not even about education. It's about
who you know. Yeah, Boris has got a great education, can't even cut his hair, mate.
But it's the confidence. It's that over exuberance, that confidence to rule, you know. And it's kind of, it's mad because I'm having this go at the moment, you know, aside from, you know, chat about politics, which is like applying for jobs in your CV, and you realize that everybody else is bullshitting. And I'm like, but I'm just trying to just say who I am. Is that not enough? And it's like, you realize that, you know, life is just full of people bullshitting their way through and lying, and you're just kind of like, well, you know, where's the fairness in that? Why can't it just be the fact that we're people and we should all move forward? Like socialism, nobody should be left behind. We can all move forward. How is it affecting anybody for that not to happen? Even the rich people will continue to get richer, but they just cannot abide anybody else, you know, getting the mere crumbs to exist. And unfortunately, that doesn't just exist at the top of society. It does exist the whole way through. Every level seems to look at a level below as if, well, you don't really deserve that. And I think that's what we need to really change at the fundamental of society, is the fact that in the end, we're all human beings, and regardless of where you're from, what you've been through, shouldn't it just, you know, be, you know, something that you all fight for, is the people's right to exist? I don't know. Am I being too idealistic in that? You know,
all we want is just some respect and be able to, you know, and well, that's it. But it's as plain as the nose of my face that doesn't work like that over here. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a bloody Facebook write-up. The absolute fact is that like, even in journalism, you've got people that are writing all these amazing columns and whatever else, and this constant work. And I'm like, oh, it's because they're the kid of so-and-so. They're the cousin of so-and-so. They're the boyfriend and husband and wife and child of so-and-so. It's not because they're even fucking talented. It's because you're all part of the same shitty alien queen. I'll go back to that. But this is, you know, it's really frustrating. So just this my journey to socialism is literally just me without an education trying to be and just trying to do some grown-upping and failing. and that's been it. And fuck knows how I managed to write 2 books, because you know, it was being a stubborn bastard. That's what made me get to write 2 books. But you know, and I yeah. So what? We're in a rigged economy. Smash it up. Smash it. That like
Yeah.
I just want more. The thing is with the internet now, you've got more and more young people that know this, and you've got the people that were on their side a few years ago, kicking them in the face and telling them to fuck off. You could have done the opposite, and we could have done something democratically. But now you're just pissing off everyone. So now all we got is this incoming kind of anarchy, because it's going to come because there's only so much of it people are going to take, and you've got a whole younger generation looking out for that. You can Turning Point can go to universities and find a token if you want to. I can sit on here tonight and start going all, right wing on you, and then get a Daily Mail column out of it next week. but have some fucking morals, mate.
Yeah.
So, but
the left are the worst for that. The left are the worst for that. And I look at the likes of Owen Jones, who, are seen as the vanguard of the left, who basically, led us up shit creek, over the last few years, and are still rewarded for that. And, I often wonder whether, we need to, kind of be a bit more honest about the people that were allowed to have that voice. So the Paul Masons, even, even the elements of Navarra, even, that they are the liberal class of the left, and why are they given the opportunity to be the voice of the left? And I think
the gatekeepers as well.
Yeah,
I think that there's a gang and there's a gatekeepy thing about it as well, and it's
the safe option.
Yeah, I just think there's political education and there's political news, but when I don't know, like when you're trying to win back the left and you go, here's my 6-part thesis on how we win back the red wall, I just go, fuck off. No, that's not how you win back the red wall. I do not want to read something that's like the bloody Da Vinci Code to be able to have manners of a pig. You just can't do that. I just think that you need to be a bit fucking nicer to people, because you're meant to be on our side. Yeah. But, look, as I say, I'm bitter, I'm twisted, and I'm a cynical old bastard. And when it comes to my community, I know we're fucked. But at the same time, I'm sick to death of people accepting apologies. When like David Evans was like, we're doing an investigation on Charlotte Nichols. I want her fired. I don't want an investigation, because David Evans can kiss my fucking ass, because we know that he's an arsehole. He's not even properly elected. You get out, you wanker. So it's,
looking at this bill, right?
I'm sorry of all the shouting.
No, not even my show, and I'm apologizing. Sorry about that, Ben. But I'm just thinking, I'm just considering though the fact that we don't have the numbers to defeat this bill. However, there's an element of within politics where you do look to cooperate with the other side, and there may be some people on the other sides that are willing to consider that this may be a step too far. However, there's just so much of me inside that thinks Keir backs this bill.
Of course he does. He's a gaffer. Yeah. He's a gaffer. He's a complete gaffer. He's got all the history behind him.
Well, he's from it, and this is the sad thing.
They were abstaining on it until the last minute. Until that vigil, they were abstaining on it. They were going to let it pass.
So what do we do? I would like to see activity, but from you, like Maggie, what do you think is the way that the left can lead on, or what they should do to be able to kind of force the elements, to actually pay attention? Do we protest? What is it that we can do? Do we write 1 million letters to MPs that ignore it, or do we just have to get out on the streets?
Write a letter to your MP's not going to do much, but
the Socialist Campaign Group can write a strongly worded one, though.
Yeah, imagine like my letter would just be "fuck you," the only thing I can say really right now that works, because we're in such a rigged and fucked up system, because a lot of us that are socialists and a lot of us are progressive. When we've left home, we've all moved into most of us, we only really socialize with our echo chambers. And the only thing I can think that really needs to start changing is we really need to start talking to our families at home more. We really need to, because the dog's just doing the biggest snoring right now. Because this is the biggest thing for me is because I have to reassure my family quite a lot as well, because what we don't realize is we're on Twitter and we're so angry and everything all day, every day. But most of us aren't. Like God, there must be like 2 actual gypsies on Twitter, you know, but it's, you know, because most of us are just trying to survive. Yeah. You know, we're trying to get by. We ain't got time. Most gypsies my age have all got kids and they're literally just being shoved from place to place to place. But the thing is that these guys, their only source of information they're getting is from your mainstream TV. Yeah. And the mainstream TV is not giving them the right info. It's not helping them. It's not doing anything. So I think that we need to start speaking. There's no point just arguing with arseholes online, with right-wing arseholes that are there to just trigger you. We really need to start talking to the people that we actually care about, yeah. Friends that we genuinely care about, with that start saying those lines that you've heard from BBC and Sky and whatever else. We need to be able to listen more and talk to them more about that, and educate, but also learn and share the anger with them as well. I think on the smallest basis, I think that's what we should be doing, is talking to our families back home, and not just to each other, and not just disregard people with those views so quickly. Because, you know, 5 years ago, I didn't know fuck all either. And I didn't know what was right. Like the whole time during the Cameron years and everything, I have barely any kind of political thoughts about it and whatever else. And that, you know, all I remember is the same thing that a lot of us who aren't in the political spectrum all the time will remember, is just those little snapshots of front pages that will tell you someone's an arsehole or not. And they're always, obviously, they favour the right. It goes back to pictures of Jeremy Corbyn in trash cans and things like that. They don't care about what it says. It's those little images that go through to people that aren't really that don't really look into it all. So I think that's our one big thing that we can do, is start speaking to people at home more. I
think what you said there is something that me and Tina and others have talked about as well, about ditching people. You know, like there is a culture on the left that is kind of really quite intolerant of and attitudes, but there is a real problem with that, I think, and I suppose this kind of impinges on what you started off saying about your kind of experience of your background and so on, and trying to present like quite a complex view of that, and also the Gypsy Roma traveller community is not one, is it? It's massively diverse.
Yeah, and it is. It's really diverse. You know, you've got Romany Gypsies, you've got Irish travellers, you've got Roma, but then and it's so diverse, and all of us, there's similarities, but then there's a lot of not similarities. But it's also at this time, in this place where we are right now, I always focus on, at the moment, I'm like, look guys, it doesn't matter about our differences right now, because we're all going in the volcano. So you've all got to fight it together. So despite all of our differences within our communities, the important thing is that we've got a bill coming up that's going to wipe out all of us. Doesn't matter if you're an Irish traveller or a Romany Gypsy or a Roma person, it doesn't matter. Because
isn't that the whole thing though, that comes down to like us talking about class, regardless of whether you're black, whether you're Asian, whatever you are, it doesn't matter what your differences are, because your enemy is the same enemy, and the only people that you have are the people that are around you. And it always comes down to that divide and rule. So your community is divided by, I'm sure there are more powerful people within it who try to make out some communities are the more superior, and it's exactly the same. And until we get an awareness where, you know, like you say, we have to say, look, you know, all of us need to unite, because we're all going down. We're all going to suffer here, you know. And this bill, while it, you know, unfortunately, it, you know, your community is more impacted than any other, there are so many other, you know, issues within that. And I would even say that, you know, what a lot of the communities don't understand is that a lot of this bill is already implemented anyway under the Coronavirus Act, which was swept in with very, very little, you know, sort of debate from or acknowledgement or understanding from, you know, the communities outside of politics. And I think that's where the danger for me is, that a lot of these powers are already there and it's like a test in the water. Nobody's done anything about it. So what's coming is a hell of a lot worse. And until we, like you say, forget our differences and bring ourselves together, I think, you know, there is some really, really bad stuff that could happen. And I don't think we have the time to sit and argue with each other over Twitter over silly names and who's this and who's that. You know, we've got to
like purity testing people.
Yeah.
Go, like, sit down. Like, I just think the constant purity testing, like, you know, we're on each other's side here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of, it's end game, isn't it? You know, you've got to be able to stand up for each other right now, because they're not going to do it for you, you know. And so
it's like the Hunger Games, isn't it? This is what it feels like, you know. Hurry up and gather together, because this shit is going down. And, you know, I don't know, I love a good riot anyway.
By the way, we've got to take a quick vote now, because we're going to lose people to the line of duty. You know, getting a lot of criticism for my poor handling of this program and how I can never finish on time. But so we're going to have a quick vote, just to extend the pub hours by 10 minutes, if that's all right. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah, I'll go for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I've got iPlayer. I'll put it back on.
Apologies to the Line of Duty fans, but yeah, because we also want to just discuss a bit about the you know, a bit more about the police and crime bill as well. We mentioned it quite a few times, but it would be good to talk about that. I mean, what just on that then, what are the things that are going to affect the travelling community particularly, Mikey? What are the things that are really pernicious about that bill? I mean, there's the stuff about criminalising trespass, but it's kind of broader than that as well, isn't it?
It's basically just down to the policeman's what's the word? It's down to what they think. So you can, but look, you could just move. You can walk onto a gypsy camp and just start collecting their trailers, their vehicles, everything they own, and confiscate it and leave them and just completely fuck them. And that's without question. That's because you think that's leaving it to a policeman to decide whether he thinks that we seem troublesome, which, you know, I could be dressed as Mother Teresa and they'd think I was troublesome. Do you know what I mean? So you're leaving it at a policeman, that's the word, discretion. You're leaving it at a policeman's discretion to walk onto a camp and decide whether to just completely, like, to call in the others and just completely attack it and empty it and take all of our stuff away completely.
And your children.
Yeah, and, well, that's it. So you're all homeless. Your kids are taken into care. And everything you own has been taken away, and that's it. And that's the plan. So when you see politicians and stuff saying, well, you know, it's not, like making it sound like it's a maybe, when we know there ain't no maybe. As soon as this passes, people are going to be going into gypsy camps and just dismantling them and taking it all legally. They can legally take everything we've ever worked for and what we've built and what we earn and what we own. They can just take the lot. It's the whole thing is just a way to just completely wipe out the way of life and us.
We're talking about Dale Farm on a massive scale, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, we're
an instant. It's kind of, you know, it's not over a period of days. You don't even, like, you know, you just walk in. Like, there's this absolute denial with, I've got like old family members at home, you know, because I've got family members, like when they get older, they love the life of moving around, whatever else. But when you get older, you can't do that anymore. So what they'll do is they'll buy a bit of ground, build a little bungalow on it, and then they'll have like a few plots on there where their friends and family can move on during the summer and stuff. And they love that. But then suddenly, like over these few years, places they've bought with their own hard-earned money that's passed for a trailer place suddenly is unpassed, and they've built up these lovely places, they've plumbed them, they've put electric in. When I've got older family members that are they're just really old fashioned. They don't do the internet, they don't read and all the old papers and whatever else. They just love the old way of life and the social life and all that lovely stuff that comes from the community, away from everything else. And the terrifying idea that these people will one day have 60 gathers show up at the gates, walk in and just start picking up everything and taking it because they can, is absolutely disgusting. But that's
it's heartbreaking.
And that's what it is. That's what they can do.
But this is why within the protections that councils should be now, in particular Labour councils, should be securing land and securing areas to make sure that regardless, oh my God, it's so cute, regardless of they say dogs look like their owners, but I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, cute.
But realistically though, councils do have time now before this bill, which, as you say, it's not a maybe, it is going to be a definite, right? So before this happens, why aren't we, this is something that the left should be doing, which is pursuing their councillors and their councils to make sure that they secure land. You know, we talk about community organising, we talk about going out and speaking to people, as you've said, Mikey, let's talk to people, let's not be, you know, behind the sort of social media barriers. Why aren't the left going now and actively seeking to make sure that there are these protections in place, that land that has been bought is now making sure that that land will be there, making sure that facilities are there, that amenities are there. This is the kind of activism that I like. This is what I want to see happen. And I'm surprised that, you know, that this isn't the kind of thing. Never mind setting up motions for Labour, conference. What about actually doing something like that? You know, we have time to do this, and this is something I think that, you know, maybe is the way forward, and I think we do have the time. And I think, you know, if we are going to talk about solidarity and we are going to talk about socialism, maybe this is the kind of thing that we need to be advocating for.
A few years ago, there was quite an active sort of traveller solidarity network, wasn't there? And I remember doing a few things up in Durham with them, and thought that was quite positive. I mean, there was a kind of like quite middle class element to it, but I still think that it did practical things, and it, you know, it certainly shared like information about what was going on, and there doesn't seem to be that. I mean, like Mikey was kind of saying before about, I mean, you know, you expressing disappointment really in the left, and I think we should take that seriously, because actually I do think that you know, we're as a socialist, we're letting, you know, a community down really. So I totally get what Tina's saying there. Mikey, what do you think like about those kind of networks and things like that? Would that be useful?
Yeah, like the thing is that it's not so much like I don't feel like it's, I don't know, like I don't feel like we're being let down by the people on our side. I just feel like there's too much against us to survive it, what's happening and what's coming.
Does that come from though years of no support? But, you know, because
well, this is the thing, we just don't have it, and so.
But I think if we tried hard enough, not your community, but the left in particular, and I think that there, you know, I can see as a campaign in mind how something like this could and should take off, and should be something that could be done, you know, quite now. And I do think that it's not incumbent on your community to fight for your own existence. for your own existence, it's incumbent on the left and the people who claim to be socialists to take that fight and say, no, actually, you're there, but we're all behind you, you know, and this actually can be done. And, you know, it's not like me to be so positive at the end of one of these shows, but I really do believe that it can be done. And I think that, you know, if there's the will to do it, you know, why can't we? And I think we should.
Yeah.
I'm up for it.
For me, like, and
I mean,
awesome. Sorry, go on, Ben.
Mikey, you said, I saw something on your Twitter the other day, which I thought was really interesting, about people kind of almost substituting themselves for the Gypsy Roman traveller community as well. So they kind of like say things like, you know, I'm a Gypsy. I've found out, I've done my family history, and I'm a Gypsy or whatever, you know. And some of that is just, I mean, it's probably well-meaning, but it's kind of getting it wrong. And what Tina's talking about is kind of sort of more practical, just, you know, practical solidarity and support, isn't it?
Yeah, I like, you know, it's, you don't have to be a gypsy to be offended by anti-GRT racism. The thing that I get annoyed about is, like, look, most of my life I have no fucking idea what that flag looks like that's meant to be the Romany flag, but you know, you'll see people wearing it, and it's great. I just don't know the history of it, but you know, this is the thing. I don't think a gypsy flag is important. I don't think waving around, you know, your heritage is like it's. I think you just don't have to. You don't have to be one of us to be appalled by what's happening. And I've spent 10 years with people coming up to me, you know, telling me that they've got grandparents and great grandparents and whatever else, and you know, and that's lovely. It's really lovely. But you also get people that obviously just say they are because it sounds more exotic to their mates, and it's a little bit racist to me, because I can tell a gypsy a mile off, someone else couldn't, but we can all tell each other. So it's I over the last, especially over the last couple of months, it's people that claim heritage and then make fucking dog shit decisions on my behalf. And that's what really annoys me. When you have absolutely no lived experience of what it's like to be one of us, but somewhere far, 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 far away, you might have had a great, 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 great gypsy granny or whatever else. And that's lovely, but that doesn't mean that you need to sit in the front and center of a GRT solidarity panel or a GRT panel that makes decisions for people like me, because you don't fucking know. So that's what annoys me. But that happens a lot. All solidarity is great solidarity, but when you know, and also, you know, it's amazing to have a colourful heritage and to have these kind of stories, and I don't knock that at all. It's just that very often, and too often, I see people being able to use some kind of heritage to walk into a Zoom meeting like this, or however many others, because they've told them that they're a gypsy. Or they have it in heritage.
How many of those people will be on the barricades whenever the police are coming to, you know, to clear, you know, where your community are? That's what I always consider. And I think, you know, that's what we need to be. We don't need to be coming to that marker. I think we need to get to before that, where there is an element of time now where we can organize and we can get people together and we can see where that solidarity is. And I do think there is the will there. And I think that, you know, what we're starting to see is that, you know, like we said earlier in the conversation, that it isn't just about, you know, one particular community, it's about all of us. They are coming for all of us. They will start with one community, but they will pick us all off. And how many are we going to wait for before we realize, oh shit, we need to do something? It shouldn't have to wait for 1 or 2 or 3 communities. We know they're coming, so why don't we do something about it? So,
and like just something else to drop as well. We have no kings or community leaders. So when one GRT publication or org publishes an apology from a shithouse MP, that does not mean that the GRT community accept that apology.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, John McDonnell, for getting angry with you, but when you didn't say anything about Toby Perkins until this apology was published, it made me really not like you. So I don't know if you're ever going to see anything like that, but it's that kind of thing that annoys me, when you you know, when you can use that to make a really dog shit thing for all of us, which just chucks us all under the bus. But yeah, like you say, that I think right now we're at a really bad time, especially like, you know, look, socialists in general, because they're just trying to turn us all into Corbynites at the moment, just so they don't have to change socialist on their card. But we're socialists, they're just cunts. So if you know, so I think socialists are in trouble at the moment. Young people are in trouble at the moment. Disabled people are in trouble at the moment. Minorities are in trouble at the moment. We are in trouble at the moment. And we all need to stick together and stop with the purity stuff, because we all need to stick together. And I really don't think that we're in a place where you can leave it all into some MP's hands or some top tier left wing journalists' hands either, because I think that they're more likely to shit on you. And I'm sorry, guys, but that happens a lot. I've seen people simp for the BBC and throw Corbyn under the bus. Not that I'm a Corbynite, he had some great ideas, but at the same time, it just destroys your purpose. If you're willing to, if you're a person that's willing to simp for the right for a bit of cash, then you're not the right person for us. So we all need to just stick together. And
only we can save ourselves.
Huh?
Only we can save ourselves.
Yeah, because they're not, the people in control at the moment, like, are never going to let us in. And for me, that's all I can see coming is the inevitable backlash from all the people the establishment kicked in the face a couple of years ago, because that's what they've done. Look, Labour's even briefing against their own unions that fund them. All they're doing is setting themselves up to be the plan B when Boris fails. You'll know that. You know, and no matter how your Labour MP disagrees with that, you know, your 80 grand keeps you there. So, you know, it's so it's your morals or your money. Hey, give me 80 grand and, you know, you might get a good blowjob, but you're not going to probably change my policies. But hey, that 80 grand's cheap. Sorry.
On that bombshell. We do have to wrap up because we're over and people will be
itching for line of duty.
Yeah, whatever. I'm actually not as cynical as I was about it because I've started watching it. It is pretty good.
You see, it is. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been fantastic, and we, you know, like genuinely could carry this on for another couple of hours, and which is what we will do when the pub's open or whatever, you know. It's been really, really good to hear from you, Mikey. I hope that people do kind of listen to you and take on some of the kind of, you know, harsh criticisms as well, because I think that one of the things that we need to do if we're mature as socialists and as the left is listen to people that are being critical of us as well. So I'm really glad that, you know, you got the chance to say those things and challenge people as well. So and Tina, thank you very much for coming on, and
always a delight.
Always lively, and you've been quite optimistic tonight, so
I know, I'm surprised myself. I think it's the Mikey effect. Maybe if I come back on again, Mikey needs to be on.